Scott, where have you been?
I've been away from music for a very long time.
How long?
Total it was just a little over 15 years.
Wow.
So, but it felt good.
It did.
Yeah, I suffered. Well, I mean, yeah, I think the thing for me was just big business side burnout, and then getting married, starting a family, and everything kind of collided perfectly, both good and bad. That it was a good time to walk away. And in New York, for your viewing audience, if you don't know, there's 500 great players for every 5 gigs that pay $10. So between going out and playing with great musicians and then running to the ATM to pay them, because obviously we weren't getting paid enough, just all of that kind of built. And finally one day, I think, being married, having a daughter, weighing the $10,000 a year for a nanny, and the 5-year waiting list for preschools in New York, I think that at that point I looked at my wife and I just said, you know what, musically, never. I'm born to play and create music and I love it. But the business side of this is killing my love of music. So if you don't mind, she's an RN. You keep working, provide us with health care, and I will be a stay-at-home, unpaid house mom. And that's really how it began. And then one thing just kind of led to another and turned into another, and all of a sudden 15 years went by and it was like, holy mackerel.
But you still had your instruments?
Always kept them with me. Our move from New York to Minnesota and then to here in Oregon, and finally my wife and daughter said, you know, we've been schlepping this stuff all the way across the country at great expense. It's time to either start playing, if not professionally, at least we'll make one of our bedrooms into a music room for you, or it's time to eBay the gear. And I kind of thought about it and it's like, yeah, it seemed excessive and a lot of extra expense.
So you didn't even have your gear set up?
Nope, not in 15 years. Just packed away and didn't really listen to music either. It was kind of heartbreaking, and you know, it would pang, especially improvised music, but even pop or rock music, if my daughter wanted to hear something or my wife was doing dishes and wanted to hear something from her childhood, that was okay. It kind of bothered me. Just music, period, bothered me.
Wow.
Made my heart kind of sad, but anything into the creative side of music, you know, jazz, improvised music, now that would just kind of destroy me. So I just stayed away from not only music, drums, listening to music. I never went out and saw music once I walked away from music. All my friends would send invites. Hey, I'm here, I'm playing at the Knitting Factory, I'm there, and I would not go. I would not go. So it hurt. But it felt necessary to do it. And I got some other things in order at the same time, and throughout all these moves, like I said, my wife and daughter convinced me to at least set up my instrument and start shedding again. And amazingly, it felt wonderful, and even more amazingly, it kind of started this small pang inside me that, you know, maybe it would be nice to actually baby step my way back into this. But here we are in Portland, and I have no clue if there's a scene. I don't know anybody. And
playing with John Gross is not exactly baby stepping.
Well, yeah, well, that's the weird thing. You know, I guess serendipity or whatever you want to call it, synchronicity. But I started practicing, and that went good. And then I ended up meeting a local guitarist, Cameron Morgan. Did one session with him, and the very next session, he brought a tenor player, whose name I actually did know, and it was vaguely familiar in the back of my cranium, but I couldn't place him. And so this next session, John comes traipsing in. We played, I think, for maybe 11 minutes, and John said, hey, do you want to play the Portland Jazz Festival in 2 weeks? Which, of course, was thrilling, and also I just felt my colon pucker. Like, okay, this might be too much too soon. But confided with my wife and daughter, and they said, go for it. If you hate it, just let it be a one-off thing. And no, it felt good. And then John said, beyond that gig, let's form a trio. And so we just recorded a few weeks ago, and hopefully something will come of that soon too.
Right. So you've got this gig coming up.
Right.
Why did you choose the Survivor Suite?
Good question, and an easy question. That came out in 1976 or 77. I was in 6th grade. My mentor at the time, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and the local college had a pretty decent jazz program, and I was very fortunate that I was introduced to him, and I first started out on flute and piano, and but by age 8 I was with him studying jazz and drums. And jazz was this beautiful, arcane, mysterious music that felt wonderful and antithetical to the Partridge Family soundtrack and early Journey and Rush and all the things that all my friends were listening to. Made me a bit of a leper, but it was a good kind of leper. And so in really the beginnings with this guy, his name is Floyd Williams Jr., he's left the earth back in the mid-90s, but fantastic influence on me, really a surrogate father. He played with Count Basie. He played, he's never got to record with any of these people, but he sat in with Miles Davis. He played with Count Basie, he toured with Lionel Hampton, and he also played with Duke Ellington for a hot minute. He was from Boston. Anyway, small town in Pennsylvania, and I'm a young kid, and this guy is showing me that there's more to life than just 2 and 4 on a snare drum, shaking a tambourine and smiling. And it's, like I said, it was arcane, and it was mysterious, and it was glorious. And after a few John Coltrane albums, and I believe Ornette Coleman's Science Fiction, my head was already spinning. He handed me Keith Jarrett's Survivor's Suite. So, and to kind of fast forward, the year before I did leave music, 1998, I was scheduled to actually do another record, and I was going to do Survivor's Suite, but I walked away from music. So now this is not only back into music, but kind of back in where I left off. So that's why Survivor's Suite.
What are you doing with it?
What we're doing is we are, well, first the band is George Culligan on piano, and Nicole Glover on soprano saxophone, possibly tenor, but definitely soprano. Tim Wilcox on tenor, myself on drums and percussion, and Andrew Jones on upright bass. It's a great band, and what we're doing, or better yet, I think a better way to say this is what we're aiming to do, is honor the piece of music and make it our own at the same time, which really the best musicians and the best music is malleable enough that that's what you get to do with it, especially in this genre, just improvising. So anybody who shows up, and if you're familiar with the record, because Keith's band never played it live.
Really?
The closest I've heard as a rumor was that they intended to do it in Germany, and Dewey went out and didn't show up until the last tune. He was drinking. And so they basically played a lot of improvised music, and that record is Life Between the Exit Signs. I believe that's the one. Yeah, I think that's it. I could have that screwed up with one of Keith's solo records from the late 60s. But it's on ECM, both Survivor's Suite and the recording that I'm referring to. But that, and again, that's just a rumor, but I heard that that was supposed to be, because it came out the same year and after the studio recording of Survivor's Suite. So really, what this has been for me as a kid all the way to my elevated age now, 49, is not only a dream of something that was profoundly inspiring. I will never claim at 8 years old to say that I understood any of the music that I was hearing, but I knew that there was something there that transcended popularity, transcended hairstyles, transcended the size of your wallet, transcended being on the radio or not. It's like Floyd told me, if there's no other thing that I can teach you within music to keep you in this genre of music, at least you can be ugly and not worry about what you look like and make a living playing improvised music, because you will never have that in pop and rock. And that stayed with me too. So, but what we're aiming to do with Survivors basically is honor the melodic thematic structure of the piece. If you're familiar with the recording, the album, CD, whatever, you are going to recognize every facet of it. Part 1, beginning, all the way through the end of Part 2, which is called Conclusion.
So you're going to keep the parts pretty much as they were written?
Absolutely. It's already been written out. All the themes, all of those things that really make that suite what that suite is, they will be there. They will be recognizable. But clearly the segues out of those into the blowing and back into the next theme, that is what we aim to do. But even thematically, even the melodic structure of that piece, it's still going to be ours, just because of the nature of music, instrumentation. As much as I would love to be Paul Motion, I am not. I won't speak for George, but I'm sure he wouldn't be wouldn't mind too terribly bad being compared to Keith or Nicole.
Listen, is he going to make the funny noises?
He actually wants extra for that, and frankly, I do not have deep pockets, so that one we've got to actually get on the side and commiserate on. So if you could call in a favor, by all means. My daughter even said, is there going to be the mosquito? Is the mosquito going to appear? But,
well, listen, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody's happy that you're back working, and I'm sure nobody's happier than you.
it feels good,
Yeah.
and it feels interesting and good to do it here in Portland. So, and for your audience, it's September 6th and 7th. Doors are at 7. Music hits at 8 o'clock both nights, and the first set is part 1, small intermission, and then part 2. And we're going to play it. It's going to be expanded, it's going to be longer than the record, and it should be